So, how do you break out of the matrix and how do you hack the matrix? Very interesting topics for today. The matrix in simple terms, just to summarize for anyone who's heard this term, who's seen it around, it's thrown around a lot lately. So for anyone who's seen it, who doesn't really understand what the reference is about, outside of the actual movie, in simple terms, my best description of what the Matrix is imagine the Matrix as the world, right? The world we live in. Then imagine the Matrix as a computer, right? Now, within a computer, there is programs and there's software that allows the computer to have functions, right? A computer without programs, without software, without an operating system, a computer without Windows, without Linux, without the OS Apple system is useless. It's just hardware, right? So the operating system, right, the programs is what makes the hardware useful, right? Now, going back to the reference of the world being this computer, right? And the world is filled with different softwares and programs. Now, here's an example of a program, right? So, this is Earth, this is the world, right? You as a human, you are the computer. Your brain is the hardware, right? And the ideas that flow in your head are the operating system, are the programs, right? So here's a program within the matrix. I am born into a family where I don't know my father because my father left my mother before I was born, right? I am very poor because I did not live with both of my parents. The only person I live with is my mother, right? My mother is a housekeeper. She struggles a lot. She works very long hours. She barely has time for me. My mother is also an alcoholic because she's very depressed and stressed because of everything she's gone through in her life. My mother is then also very abusive towards me because she takes out her anger of my father not being in her life. She takes it out on me. I don't have guidance because I don't have a father figure, and my mother also is struggling to guide me as she's going through so much, just trying to keep me alive. Stay in a neighborhood that is filled with crime, that is filled with violence, that is filled with people drinking every day. I am surrounded by people that don't believe you can ever get to the next level, that believe that if you're born here in this area, in this township, and you live in these shacks, that you will stay here forever. Now, everything that I've just described right now is various programs that run within you. This is a description of a human being, right? And the ideas, the concepts, the reality that exist, right, that are going through this person's mind are programs, right? Now, carrying on with the theory that all of these experiences, all of this conditioning, remember, conditioning is you going through certain things long enough to convince you that this is the way things are, right? So if you see enough crime, you get conditioned to believe that it's normal, right? If you see enough violence, enough people hitting each other all around you, right, you get conditioned to believe that this is a normal part of life, right? And there is nothing wrong with it. It is just something that everybody does. If you grow up in an environment where everybody drinks a lot and people are always drunk around you, if all of the elders you see are drunk, your parents, your mother, your father, your siblings, everything around you revolves around alcohol, you get conditioned to believe that it's just another part of life and it's not something that you can change, especially because this is all you have known, this is the reality you've grown up in, so you can't imagine a different reality because you don't have first-hand experience of that, right? All of this, all of these scenarios are programs, right? Now, this is what we call the matrix, right? The matrix is this idea that because of what you've gone through, because of what you've been taught, because of the ideas that have been poured into you, because of the way you have grown up, because of what the world, right, has conformed you to be in, because of all of this, your reality gets shaped by all of these programs, right? All of these experiences, all of these things that you've gone through, all of these conditions, right? All of these limiting beliefs, just growing up around family members or parents that don't believe in you, that tell you that you can't do certain things because they don't understand how you're ever going to get to that level because their parents never done that, they never done that, so it's hard for them to see the potential of you ever achieving certain things because all they see is the reality of the poverty that they are in, right? Now, we all have programs, we all have conditioning, we all have things that we've gone through when we were growing up. And all of these things have shaped us to be the people that we are today, right? So, as we are, with everything that we have gone through, with all of our complex sort of situations and all of our different personalities and all of our different various forms of conditioning, we all exist within a matrix of our own, So, going back to the first question of how do you break out of the matrix, So, the matrix is essentially the realization that you are in a prison but not of your own doing, So if you remember the first example I expressed of that kid who grew up without a father, that kid who grew up with the mother who was struggling, who was going through depression, who was an alcoholic, but she was working very hard just trying to keep you alive. That child that grew up in the township environment, surrounded by violence, surrounded by alcoholics, surrounded by people that don't have any dreams for the future, surrounded by people who have very limiting beliefs, surrounded by criminals, surrounded by crime, surrounded by a lot of negative things, As you grow within this conditioning, you end up becoming part of the environment, You end up doing certain things out of survival because you believe this is all you can do, right? So you start doing crime because you believe that is the only way you can take care of yourself. You believe that is the only way for you to get ahead in life, You become a violent person, You become very toxic in your relationships. You don't know how to respect women. You don't know how to treat women because you never grew up with the father. You don't believe you have it in you to be able to be a good man. These are all programs and conditioning that has shaped you to be the person that you are today, right? So, as I said, all of this conditioning isn't of your own doing, right? It is, however, the world that has shaped everything that is around you, and this is the matrix, right? So, how do you break out of the matrix? Well, first step is to realize all of the programs that run through your mind. That's the first thing, you know. If we go back to my example of the matrix being a computer, and the software being the ideas and the conditioning that we've gone through. If you're trying to fix a computer and there's a virus, the first thing you do is you search for any irregularities, right? You search for any things that are damaging the computer. You search for any corrupted files. If you're trying to take out or delete a virus that's in your computer, you delete everything, right, that is harming the computer. You delete any programs that are slowing down the computer. You delete any files that are corrupted, right? And if all else fails, you format the entire machine, right, and start it all over again, right? So the options you have to break out of your own matrix, right, is to first go back into the beginning of your life up until now. So you first have to scan for the viruses, right? And what are the viruses? The viruses are any toxic and negative experiences that you have gone through, right? As I said in that first example, if you grew up in a certain household, if you grew up a certain way, if you grew up in a certain environment, these are all viruses that exist within you, right? Whether you choose to ignore them or whether you acknowledge them, they exist regardless, right? However, you can't clean the system if you don't find the problems, right? So the first thing is looking deep within yourself, looking deep within your history from the time you were a child up until now, thinking about everything that affected you negatively, right? Anything and everything that affected you negatively that you feel added a certain dent into your existence. Anything that you feel has affected who you are now, right? For example, if you're bad in relationships because you grew up in a household where you never saw what a married couple looks like, or you grew up in a very toxic environment where your parents were always fighting, if that affected you today and has affected your relationships, then you have to go back to all of those experiences, acknowledge what it is that damaged you, and delete it, right? You do this for every single thing that you've gone through in your life. This is you cleaning yourself, right? And once you've done that, right, you begin to let go, right? Now, the when it comes to deleting certain things in your system that you no longer agree with, right? It doesn't mean you're gonna forget, it's not magic, you're not just gonna forget all of the life experiences you've gone through. However, what you are gonna do is you're gonna acknowledge that you've gone through these experiences, and then you're gonna acknowledge that as a being right now, you do not associate with that, right? So I grew up in a very violent household, for example, where my parents were always fighting with each other and they were always toxic to each other. I now say I acknowledge that I experienced that, but right now I do not agree with that lifestyle. I do not agree that that is the only way to exist as people, right? That is you deleting that harmful virus, you know? That then means that the way you live your life now, you do not repeat the same mistakes that were done by the people that raised you in your reality now, right? If cleaning the damaged files isn't enough, as I said, when it comes to a computer, then you format, right? And you formatting means that you have to unlearn everything that you thought you knew, right? Me, in my personal capacity, I formatted my system, you know, because there was a lot of interconnected things that were damaging me, but like just removing one file was not enough, or removing a few files was not enough. It was required of me to format my system, you know, to rethink everything I think, I believe, and question, why do I believe what I believe, you know? Why do I think this is true? Do I think this is true? And if I do think it's true, why? You know? Is it because I was told that this is true? Is it because my parents told me this is true? And because I have love for my parents, I want to respect them, and so I want to listen to what they tell me to do, and me listening to what they tell me to do is me thinking I am showing them love. So regardless of if I believe in this thing or not, I'm doing it, right? So you have to question the reason why you do anything, right? The reasons why you do everything, right? So formatting your mind, right? Your operating system, your matrix, comes with unlearning a lot of things, you know. It's not easy, right? It's very painful, you know, because you literally have to undo conditioning that has probably happened for 20 plus years, depending on when you decide to wake up, right? So it isn't an easy process to unlearn everything, but this is what is required for you to create a life that you agree with, right? And so, as I said, you know, the matrix is the ideas, thoughts, conditioning that has been put into your head, right? It is what controls you without you knowing, right? Your experiences, your fears, you know, the reason why you want to make a lot of money, the reason why you want to buy fancy clothes, the reason why you want to be liked by everyone, the reason why you want to be the person with the most money. All of these things come from conditioning that exists whether we acknowledge it or not. You know, the reason why you want to be the richest person in the room, maybe you grew up in an environment where there wasn't a lot of wealth around, you know, and you told yourself as a child that I'm gonna get the most money, right? And I'm gonna be the one who's liked because When I was a kid, I saw that people with money were liked. I saw that people that dress with expensive clothes were liked. I saw that people who were driving fancy cars were liked, and I want to be liked. So I'm going to grow up and become the person with the most money. Whether you acknowledge this or not, this is conditioning that exists within you, and it continues to control your reality right now until you become aware of it, right? So this is what the Matrix is, you know. This is like the red pill. This is what the movie was about. That there's things happening that you are not aware of, right? And elevating, right, to the next level, right, to the higher frequency is realizing that you are in control, right? And realizing that you are in control means that you are able to change your reality, right? Acknowledging that you are in control means that you don't need to co-sign with things that do not uplift you. I grew up poor, right? I grew up where there wasn't a lot of things around, for example, right? However, if I do not believe in this conditioning, if I break out of that matrix, I don't have to look at the entire world right now with the scarcity mindset, believing that there isn't enough money to go around, believing that I have to fight with everyone around me because if they get money, that means they're taking away from the money that I could get. This fear mentality of like, I need to try and make the most money more than anyone, because if I don't make the most money, then I might lose it and I might go back to going broke. And because I grew up in a family that was broke, I never want to go back to this. Is all conditioning that exists whether you acknowledge it or not, right? However, as I'm saying, if you do want to transcend, if you're tired of being controlled by the matrix, if you're tired of feeling helpless and being controlled by this world, you have to acknowledge that you are in control. And when you acknowledge that you are in control, then you decide to delete information or programs that run within your head that no longer serve you, right? I grew up in a family that was very toxic. My mother and father were always fighting each other. There were violence towards each other. They didn't love each other. They faked each other. There was a lot of hate. I grew up in that environment. This is another program. This is another conditioning. Yes, it happened. Yes, this is a reality you went through. Yes, you did exist through all of that darkness. You saw it. However, I do not now have to be toxic within all of my relationships. I do not now also have to treat women the same way my father did. I do not now also have to feel like I do not know how to love a woman because I never saw it within my family structure. I do not need to co-sign with these ideas, these programs, this conditioning if it does not serve me. You feel me, right? So this is how you break out of the matrix. You have to acknowledge that the conditioning exists, right? You won't see it. It won't be written on your face that you grew up like this. It won't be written in your face that these are the experiences that affected your life. You have to do the soul searching, right? And you have to do this yourself, unfortunately, right? It's not the therapist's job to do this for you. The therapist can help you relive some memories, right? The therapist can maybe help you think about things that you don't want to speak about. But ultimately, you are the one that has to make the decision of what it is that you decide to change in your life, you know? And as I said, it's not about just forgetting something ever happened. It's about acknowledging that it did exist, acknowledging that I did experience alcoholism as a kid. I did experience seeing my mother or my father drunk every day. It did affect the person that I became. However, I do not agree with that, right? And I will not become an alcoholic just because I grew up in an alcoholic environment. You feel me? This is a programming that you can decide to either keep in your life or destroy. You've got two options. There's always two options. You can either decide to be the victim and say, I grew up in a very violent environment, that is why I am a violent person. Or you can say, I grew up in a very violent environment, I did not like growing up in that environment, and so I will not become a violent person because I do not want to repeat those same mistakes. That is breaking out of the matrix. You feel me?